What do you think I do? Do you think I open your package and then I put this in another package I seal it up so that I can open it up on camera to pull other things out? Are you crazy?
Yes.
Who would do that? Who would do that?
My brother Justin.
I know you'll know where we were when.
Hello. And welcome to Where We Were When, a podcast where we look back at the most memorable movie-going experiences of our youth and eat candy. Was that scary? Did that scare you? Well, I'm your host, Heidi Gardner, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother, Justin Gardner. Hi, Justin.
Hello, Heidi. How are you this Halloweenish night?
I'm mostly manic. I for those listening to that intro, at least Justin fully committed. I was very in and out of like 7 different accents characters. But I mean, at least you guys know the ride you're in for, and the ride you're in for is going to be another scary one. We are still in October, everyone, and it is time to be freaky and spooky. I've got my Texas Chainsaw Massacre shirt on for those of you that are watching. For those of you that are listening, that's what I'm wearing. Justin is adorned in a black hood. He looks very Reaper-ish. The NASA Reaper. Because it says NASA.
Yeah. You know, it's a little mix of religion and science, right?
The NASA Reaper. Cool, dude.
That's right. The NASA Reaper.
That is what you are. We're excited tonight. We're going to talk some more about scary movies. On our last episode, we talked about the scariest 5 movie villains ever. So if you didn't hear that, go back and listen to it. It got real.
Oh, it got scary as fuck. And you also heard about the scariest goddamn basement that you'll ever be in. Our Mammo and Bampo's basement, which is still like that. Still like that.
Still
spooky
so
as fuck.
Scary.
Serial killer basement.
We're still going to get scary tonight, but we're going to do it in a little bit of a different way. I'm excited to tell you guys about it, but we've got to get to our candy first. We just got to eat that candy. Justin.
We got to eat that candy. And
Justin,
you know what?
What?
I did. I got this letter from you. And
I actually want to say something really quick because I feel like we do this candy segment and I usually let you kind of like do your thing as you're opening the candy.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I'm getting poor representation in this segment because, you know, I send Justin candy every week. It's typically like an easy thing. I just ordered it in Amazon. Usually comes in bulk. That's the thing that's not easy about it. And Justin gets an Amazon package. But a lot of times, no, because I know it's from Amazon. It's not from UPS next day air. I would never next day you anything. No.
Next day air.
You are changing the packaging, Justin.
Come on.
You are sometimes adding stuff to the package.
That's
it's not
true.
Just spiders and eyeballs. Like you add like think positive, like door hangings. You've added like
why would I buy that stuff for myself?
You've added 4th of July stuff, you know, when it wasn't even 4th of July.
I hate this country. So I don't know why you would
I know you hate this country. You're my brother. You've always hated this country. But if there's something other than the candy I sent you in there, I didn't send it to you because I've never seen that package.
Why would you be afraid of the package that you sent me? I mean,
Heidi,
send that package. Heidi, look at this. It's sealed up, right? What do you think I do? Do you think I open your package and then I put this in another package I seal it up so that I can open it up on camera to pull other things out? Are you crazy?
Yes.
Who would do that? Who would do that?
My brother Justin. And I hope.
Well, I'm not a goof. I'm serious. This is a serious podcast about serious movie talk, and I won't have it. I won't be accused of it.
Well,
so let me. You know what? Hey, listeners, we're gonna open this up. We're gonna open this up right now, and we're gonna see what's inside of this. Okay. So we're just gonna we're gonna test this little theory of Heidi's, and we're gonna see what's going on. So Heidi, this is it. It is sealed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sealed up. Okay. All right. And now I am opening it up. Okay. So this is not a magic trick. I know you've met David Blaine. Okay.
Yes, I have.
So even David Blaine couldn't do this. Okay. So here is, I'm opening it up. Okay. I am spilling the contents, and it is Swedish fish. Is this what you sent me? Is this what you sent me?
That is what I sent you.
Boom. Boom. There's nothing else in here. That's it. So I don't know what to tell you. Swedish fish.
Listen, everyone, that is what I sent Justin, but
there you go.
If you're a listener that likes me better than Justin, believe
what
me.
Does it have to do? That has nothing to do with the truth. Are you actually asking people to believe you because they like you more?
No,
I literally just showed you on camera that this was the only thing in that package. And sometimes you send me a bunch of bullshit, and I have to grin and bear it.
That's what I'm saying. The people who like me
don't believe her.
I don't send him all that other bullshit. I only send him candy. The people that like Justin more, you can believe the bullshit, but just know that you're buying into bullshit coming straight from the NASA Reaper.
Yeah, you know what? Heidi, you've changed. You used to be
wow.
Yeah, you used to be really, you used to be really honest and nice, and you're still nice, but you ain't honest. So,
oh my God, my own brother saying I've changed.
You've changed a little bit. Because you're making stuff up. Listen, Swedish fish. Should we get past this and get into the Swedish fish
and agree on some candy? I think we have to eat the red first, please, because that is the
with this red light, I can't really tell which one's red. So
that would be hard.
You know what? I think though that this is red. It looks kind of.
It
pink.
looks orange, and there's orange. It looks orange to me. Hold up another one so I can see in your light.
Let me change this light. That is red. Look at that.
Great. Okay.
I'm gonna go back to red. Okay. Here we go. And that's the classic Swedish fish.
Really soft. Softer than I remember.
See, this is the thing. Here's the thing about Swedish fish. We just did gummy bears. Swedish fish is the anti-gummy bear. Because it actually doesn't have any, what do I want to say? Gelatin.
Oh.
Yeah. It is sugar, invert sugar, corn syrup, white mineral oil. That doesn't sound good. Modified cornstarch. So I think the cornstarch holds all of the candy together. But you know what? I do have to say, that's my favorite.
Wow. The green. Well, the point I was going to make about Swedish fish is Swedish fish are bold because I feel like the colors have just kind of come along later and become more popular. But traditionally, Swedish fish is an entire package of just the red Swedish fish. So you could be getting 35 just red. And you don't see that a lot. The only other place I really see that is Sour Patch Watermelon. You're being cocky. You're being we only need one. We only need one flavor for a whole bag of candy for 37 pieces. So I'm interested in these other colors because sometimes I get a little burnout on Swedish fish. I don't ever buy a whole pack because also the fish are huge too.
I feel like this is the same thing though as the Cadbury egg because the Swedish Fish used to be bigger. And didn't they? Didn't they used to be bigger than this?
I think this
isn't fairly big.
I think these are big. I think they also make smaller, but I think these are original size.
Okay. It is, but it's the anti-gummy bear because this is just like, you just clamp down. You just bite right through this.
It also says Swedish on it. Yeah, I'm going to eat one more. I'm going to eat your favorite one.
This is just pure sugar. You know what? But it's not. Here's the other nice thing about Swedish Fish. It's not like too sweet. Skittles? We've always talked about Skittles just being way too sweet.
Mm-hmm.
This just has a nice, like, it's, it's sugar, but it's because it's gummy-ish. It's a second gummy.
I like the lime too a lot. And I think I know why you like it so much. It tastes like the lime popsicles in Mammo and Bampo's freezer. Remember?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The popsicles
of orange, lime, and raspberry, and the lime ones tasted just like that lime.
Gotcha. Yeah. Orange, lime, raspberry. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I agree.
The Heidi popsicles.
The Heidi popsicles. Yeah, I like it.
Okay, so tonight's show is going to be about horror, but Justin, this was your idea, and I think it is an amazing idea. It was very inspiring and cool to me. So I kind of want you to intro what we're going to talk about because I just want to give you the street cred. You thought of this.
I did. Mm-hmm. So last time we talked about villains. But the thing about horror movies is that there are a lot of different genres to horror films, that of the landscape. So the ones that I really respond to generally are the ones that are stylish, the stylish horror films, the ones that kind of catch you off guard a little bit, and are beautiful. Really,
beautiful.
That's the thing. They're beautiful and horrible at the same time.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that I saw, one of the first ones that I saw that fit this definition. Actually, it had to be the first one. I would have to imagine was a little Italian horror film with a unforgettable soundtrack by a band called Goblin. The unforgettable Suspiria.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So Suspiria was actually one of the reasons why it was so beautiful. Is because it was one of the last films, and I hope I'm right about this because this is just something that I've always remembered. Dario Argento is the director, famous Italian director of giallos. So giallos are this kind of like, it's a subgenre of horror. It's Italian horror. But Dario Argento shot Suspiria. It was the last one to be shot in Technicolor. And Technicolor was shot with 3 different types of cameras, and they all shot a different color. And that's why when it was processed and it all came together, that's why you have this just insanely rich, gorgeous looking film. That's why you have these really saturated colors. And it just really was one of those movies that it was clearly a horror film. I mean, when you first sit down to watch Suspiria, it just has that crazy soundtrack, and the heroine is like running through the rain, and it just seems very like she's in a lot of danger. And she shows up to the ballet school where she's gonna be, staying. And you had seen like a murder right beforehand, with these glowing eyes and this demon and somebody getting hung. And so you knew it was a horror movie right off the bat. But then you go into the school and it's rich and it's gorgeous and you have all these beautiful women and you have this elegance really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it just had, I mean, that's the reason why it has lasted. The story's okay, like
Mm-hmm.
Suspiria, the story's okay, but
Mm-hmm.
you just cannot help but remember how absolutely gorgeous this film is. And that's one of the uh I would say one of the keystones for a lot of the modern horror filmmakers who really like to make horror beautiful, because you have something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre on one hand, right, which is really raw, and
Mm-hmm.
really messy, and
Yeah.
handheld,
Yep.
and very real. And then you have the other type, which is very constructed and very deliberate and very, I would say almost um, ethereal. It's
Yeah.
on sort of like another plane. It's not exactly our reality.
Yes. Catches you very off guard because you're not. I mean, when you see a movie like that where, the soundtrack is so good, the visually it looks so good, the colors are so rich, like you think you're going to experience something totally different than like being scared. Um it's funny like Suspiria, yeah, I think for a lot of people like they kind of associate it with horror, but they kind of more associate it with like a look. At least that's
Yeah.
what I
The
did for
look and the
sure.
music.
Yeah.
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 The
That is definitely, I would put that in your well well described beautiful horror category.
Yeah, and I will say that Claudio Simonetti, is, the one of the guys who founded Goblin. Was Goblin, I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure his name's Claudio Simonetti. And, he has gone around the world performing a live soundtrack for Suspiria. Um in these big halls. Well, our local theater, Screenland Armor, for a number of years, I think like 3 or 4, was able to kinda get him in and do it in a small theater and have a live soundtrack for Suspiria, which was just mind-blowing, And
Mhm.
it's just yeah, it's just amazing to, like, be able to see something like that this many years later. I mean, we're talking
Yeah.
about that was in the '70s, right? So you're talking about 40 years later, right? And it holds up. It holds up. So I would say that that's really like one of those keystone, stylish horror films, that has always stuck with me. And on the other side of that, I have to give props to the remake. Um,
Mhm.
I really the way that it was they completely flipped the bit where it was set in set in s I think it was set in they both were set in Germany. I feel like that's right,
Yeah.
but I
Yep.
could be wrong. But they set the remake in the sort of like Eastern Bloc, you know, blues and greens and muted colors.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was just as striking and beautiful because it was really more of a dour tone, and it was,
Mhm.
I just was captivated by that movie. I think that that is a modern classic, and the way that the dancing was much more integrated. The first one didn't have it was a dancing, academy, but
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of dancing in it,
No.
and the dancing in the new one is like the girls are collectively casting a spell.
Yeah, yeah,
And
for
it
sure.
is if you haven't seen the remake, it's long, but it's on Amazon because it actually was an Amazon Prime, film. I stick with it. Stick with it because I was just so incredibly impressed, and Dakota Johnson is fantastic in it, and there's a good twist, and it's creepy and it's, lurid and it's just yeah, it works. It works on a lot of different levels, and when that one woman gets killed in the
Yeah,
room,
that
you know what I'm
ooh.
talking about.
Mhm.
That is one of the most brutal deaths in the history of cinema.
Mhm.
Eh, seriously.
Yeah.
Not gonna
Yeah.
say too
Oh,
much more.
that's one of those cool things that happens where it's like a movie screens at like the Venice or Toronto Film Festival. And I remember when that one screened, and immediately all over Twitter, people were like, I just left a screening throwing up. I could not because of that one death scene. And then I just love when that spreads. You know, I know that when I saw that, I ran into the other room to Zeb and I was like, there's some movie that everyone just saw at the Toronto Film Festival, and like something is like so horribly gory that like people were like throwing up in the room. Like, and then it's just
I will tell
fun.
you this. I will tell you, it is fun. I will tell you this though. You know this. I used to manage a team of film bloggers, right? So I knew that reality and those people.
Yeah.
That's a bunch of fucking bullshit. Nobody threw up. That's exactly it. It works. So they get on fucking Twitter and they say some goofy shit, right? But yeah, like nobody's fucking throwing up in that movie. Like that's, but it doesn't take anything away from the movie being highly effective. It's a highly effective, and it's also a great commentary on the actual setting that it's in. This this sort of, it's still communist East Berlin, West Berlin type of reality. So it's a very effective film. So that's a lot on Suspiria. Heidi.
Yeah.
A stylish horror film that you really enjoy. What is your pick? What is one of your picks?
Mine is The Lost Boys.
Yes.
Like, I mean, from the start of that film, and we're like seeing the boardwalk in Santa Cruz, and like,
yes,
especially as like a kid or a teenager, whenever you saw it, whenever it came out, like, I mean, boardwalks, arcades at night, the neon lights. I mean, there's nothing better. There's nothing cooler.
Right.
Then you've got this, well, you know, there's the crazy sax man, the oiled up sax man playing on the board, playing on the boardwalk.
Oh my God. The John Hamm sketch, the SNL sketch. If you have not seen the John Hamm Sergio SNL sketch, go fucking check that out. It is hilarious.
Thank God someone 25 years or later, 20 years later, finally made a commentary on what we were all thinking. But then also you've got like Jamie Gertz is like this like beautiful gypsy just kind of running around the carnival, and she's got like the longest curly hair. And then you've got the Lost Boys, this motorcycle gang of vampires led by Kiefer Sutherland, who they're all we talked about the one earring dudes on the last
Vampires
show.
can pull it off. Vampires can pull it off.
Yes, they totally can.
And a Kiefer Sutherland with bleach blonde, almost a mohawk mullet.
Yes.
Right? You know, like it's like stuck kind of straight up, and then it's like, and he's got this mullet. So he's got this like almost white trash, but punk white trash vampire mullet going on.
Yeah. Long leather dusters. You've also got
Dusters.
Bill.
That's right.
Bill from Bill and Ted as a vampire.
Alex Winter.
And then, okay, so those visuals, those wardrobe, it's so good. But then you've also got the family, Diane Weiss, Jason Patrick is her son, and Corey Haim. And they're moving in with their grandpa, who lives in like the ultimate like grandpa in the middle of nowhere house, like this kind of like log cabin filled with taxidermy and like kind of a like one of those kitchens where he opens like the fridge and it's like, you know, got different like drawers for like grandpa's stuff or like that you can't eat. Everything's just like labeled and fun.
The sleeve of cookies. The sleeve of cookies that is grandpa's.
Yeah, it's just like a fun house, but it's like creepy and old. Great visual. Then you've got the Corey Feldman Frog Brothers element on the boardwalk. They work at a comic shop that's like your perfect 80s looking comic shop. Yeah, the Frog Brothers, who are vampire hunters.
Right. Wannabe vampire hunters.
Yeah. I mean, but at a certain point, they are vampire hunters. They are.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then
out of their league, but vampire hunters nonetheless.
Yes. The mom, Diane Wiest, ends up dating. You'll find out later in the movie if you watch it. But she starts dating this guy who owns like a TV video electronics.
Edward Herman.
That sounds right to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
He owns like a electronics store, and they just go through it really quick in the movie. But that electronics store is like also perfect 80s, like lots of good neon, like exactly what you want an electronics store to be. Okay, and then also the vampire's lair. They live in basically like what I read was like an old decrepit rundown hotel that used to be like the nicest hotel in Santa Cruz. And it's just decorated so gypsy and cool, and Joel Schumacher, like, the movie's beautiful and it's a treat for the eyes. The script is a treat. All the actors are a treat. It's beautiful. It's beautiful horror. And the deaths are fucking awesome. The way all the vampires like go down rules. It's beautiful.
I just remember that was just sort of like at the height of like Jason Patrick wasn't a thing. And that was like, it kind of was like, who is this guy? Right.
Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland, I try to remember like what I had seen in him before. The people that you knew from that movie were Diane Wiest, right?
Yeah.
And the Coreys.
Two Coreys, yeah.
And the Coreys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a Joel Schumacher jam. Lost Boys.
Yeah.
He who also he directed Batman Forever.
Yes. Another beautiful movie.
Another beautiful movie. And then he followed it up with Batman and Robin, which
you could fight
has
for
its
some
charms.
Beautiful. Yes.
Has its charms.
But you could tell the man cared about how something looked. And I love that.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Joel Schumacher is, I think, one of those. I think really he had some swings and misses. But the thing about Joel is that he swung hard.
Yes. He committed.
That's the thing about Batman and Robin. It was a big swing, and it did, and I don't think it connected. But you got to take big swings, if you want to get the big hit. And The Lost Boys was, I don't know, it's just one of those like perfect.
It's perfect.
It's a perfect movie for its time too.
Yeah.
Right. It was such an account. Like Sergio, I believe that even to this day that there was some motherfucker in suspenders who was like pumping iron out there on the beach, and he just happened to be a fucking dope saxophone player, and that was his night gig,
Yeah.
He didn't make a lot of money, but he loved doing it, and he just worked up a good sweat, and that's why, it was a little bit more of a workout at night,
Yeah.
So I believe that
actual name is Tim Capello, a saxophone player.
Sergio is
Tim
nice.
Capello. Yeah.
That's some choice trivia right there.
Yeah, that's some choice trivia. He used to play with Tina Turner. He played sax and keyboard. But during the time of Lost Boys, Seb sent me this great article about it, but I think it was that he had a band, and they didn't care they were just like, do your thing, sing whatever you want. And that's what he went with. I Still Believe was the song.
It's his own thing. Yeah, it's his own thing. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Beautiful horror.
Beautiful horror. Do you think that we've covered The Lost Boys enough?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I've got another one that I think it's a different type of horror movie. I would call it corporate horror.
I know what you're going to say.
You know what I'm going to say.
I love it.
First,
I love it.
We're doing trivia, right? And I'm pretty sure that you know this. What famous actor and fairly famous Oscar-winning director were first attached to American Psycho?
Okay, so famous actor, and you said fairly famous Oscar-winning director.
Yeah, fairly famous. He was a little bit more famous in like the 80s and 90s. Not as much today, although he's still around and he's still making movies, and also documentaries and documentary series. And he's an iconoclast. He believes in some conspiracy theories.
Michael Mann?
No, not Michael Mann.
No.
His last name is Sediment. Is a igneous geological word.
A gem, a rock, a sand.
Ooh, the second one, but a different name for a rock.
Oliver Stone?
Oliver Stone and
Tom Cruise?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay,
Leo
well, I like that too.
And Oliver Stone were gonna make American Psycho.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
I like that pairing too.
That pairing would have fucking been insane.
Yeah.
But who you got were Mary Herring and Christian Bale. And there just isn't, there is just not a more hilarious scene, I think, in modern horror than when Christian Bale, Patrick Bateman, is explaining why Huey Lewis in the News is so amazing to Jared Leto's Paul Allen, and then proceeds to chop him up with an axe.
Yeah.
American Psycho, I will admit that I did not make it through the book. I did Bret Easton Ellis, one of those like iconic sort of like bad boy 80s and 90s writers. I don't know if like American Psycho was like as a book was banned because there was some really, really, really like graphic, violent shit in that book. And it's a tough read, really, honestly. It's a tough read because there's a lot of like repetition, and people talking about fucking like, where they go to dinner and what they're wearing and it's, it's vapid, really. And it's supposed to be that world. But man, did they take a book that was a generally interesting idea, right? Was an interesting idea, and it was a great thought experiment. And they just nailed 80s Wall Street culture to the fucking wall. I mean, and Patrick Bateman was on one hand incredibly terrifying and on the other hand incredibly pathetic. And they walked that line of this, unreliable narrator, in that film perfectly.
Yeah.
What do you remember about American Psycho?
I remember, I definitely feel like we saw it together, Justin.
Yeah. I'm sure we did.
I definitely remember that. I don't quite remember where.
We probably saw it I think we probably saw it at the Tivoli. That wasn't a big release.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I have to imagine we saw that at the Tivoli.
I mean, I immediately loved, the narrator vibe of it. Him talking us through his skincare routine in the shower. I mean, and also like beautiful. I mean, how perfectly that mask was, how perfectly shot everything was, like how perfectly groomed he was. Like everything was crisp and clean. And when he would go out to these business dinners with his other asshole colleagues and what yuppies everybody was. But it was obviously planned out to a T what everyone was wearing. Like it was so of the time period. And then, I mean, I remember
that was part of the horror. That was part of the horror. Just this like sort of like world you were stuck in and these things that you had to do in order to belong.
Yes. And then I think it's one of the earlier deaths, where he kills a woman that he takes home, where he's talking about Genesis, the band, and how much like he's also giving us like kind of a similar Huey Lewis and the News thing, like, or he puts on Genesis.
He's talking about Phil Collins. He's talking about Phil Collins.
I feel like
I
there's
think,
a little Genesis.
No,
in
that's
there too.
I thought Genesis. Oh, wait a second. Genesis is Phil Collins and also
Collins and Peter Gabriel.
Collins and
He
Peter
loves
Gabriel.
Genesis in the movie. I think that's one of his favorite.
No, he does.
Yeah.
He does. I think that I feel like Huey Lewis in the News, and then he actually goes into the Phil Collins stuff in that same scene, that music scene.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the studio. But maybe you're right. Actually, now that I think about it, when he's like, he's explaining, here's what it is. The greatest love of all with the two prostitutes. And he is walking them through Phil Collins and why Phil Collins is so great. And then he just very like bluntly says, don't just look at it, eat it. Like to make them like, perform sex on each other. Yes. And then later on, he like it's kind of like what it's been hinted that he has like beat them up, but they're still hanging around the house. But that's that one scene they made them cut from that movie, not the violence, mind you. It was going to get an X or an NC-17 or whatever the fuck, right? But like 2 seconds literally of when he's in the mirror, with his muscle, looking at his muscle, and there was just a little bit too much of like his torso and like her backside, even though you couldn't see anything.
Right.
They didn't want that because it like, I guess to them it denotes like anal sex. So like there was like literally like there's a director's cut and it's only like 3 more seconds of footage. Isn't that insane? Yeah. It's like that story from Trey Parker and Matt Stone when they kept on submitting like, Team America World Police and all the other movies, and they just kept putting more crazy shit into it, and at some point the movie was even worse and that they just let it pass, there's no rhyme or reason to it. But getting back to American Psycho, and this is the thing, this is like the cautionary tale. It's like the horror about that's in our world. We haven't learned anything. That was about this horrible society, this very privileged, white bread, impenetrable society, and how horrible it was to actually be in that. People, that's like, oh, they're making so much money. They're in those buildings. They're doing this thing. But actually, this guy's trapped in his own mind, right? And I truly believe that in American Psycho, none of that stuff really happened, right? I think that it's just all sort of like in his head. Because especially at the end where he's trying to feed the cat to the ATM machine and like, the police car blows up and the guy says, I saw Paul Allen just like a couple weeks ago. I think that's what he's just trapped inside his own head, and he can't escape it. And he has such self-loathing that he imagines himself doing these horrible things. But yeah, like, but it's just perpetuated, and that was supposed to be a cautionary tale about how horrible these corporate raiders, this one guy was going that extra step and actually murdering people as opposed to just ruining like millions of people's lives through, Wall Street finance.
Yeah.
And it just has that extra layer to it that is really, really quite poignant. And that's I would say that's why in many ways it's a timeless film. It just has those themes. The over-medicated people in that movie too, the drugs are back, the excess, these things go in waves and they go in cycles, and it was like the 80s, but then you had grunge. Well, we're kind of think back to like the excess again, in many ways, right? If the excess even stopped, right?
Yeah.
So, too much money, too much time, too much creativity, or too much the idle hands are the devil's playthings. That's what I would say when it comes to American Psycho. Is there any other Any other tidbit, any other thing about American Psycho in particular that
Gosh.
you really think resonates?
I mean, for being as fucked up as it is and everything, all the themes that it has to deal with, and that we're still dealing with those same themes today. It is crazy that the main thing I take away from it is like how fucking perfect and crisp it looks. Like it is beautiful. And that's what
it's beautiful.
Is so psycho about American Psycho is it is a horrific movie that is gorgeous. Like and that was what Patrick Bateman was trying to be, like just perfect. No flaw. Like yeah. And they pulled
and he nailed
off.
it too.
Yeah.
He nailed it
I know.
too.
Yeah, like Christian Bale.
The guys want to look like two things. They want to look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club or Christian Bale in American Psycho. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of like, that's sort of like the,
right.
Girls have their, they're sort of like, oh, I wish XYZ. Guys have that too. There's such a thing as called an Adonis complex. And, that, trust me, every guy was like, fuck, that guy is fucking ripped.
Yeah.
Then that first scene where he's doing, it's like where he's like, I do this many this, and then he's talking about his thing. It's like, and then that one line, I can do 1,000 now.
Yeah.
That's a line that has been uttered by a lot of other people, and as a goal.
Yeah. For sure.
It's like that's the thing with those films. They're cautionary tales, but they're almost too attractive, and they're too pretty that people do want to become them.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
They want to be the total package.
They want to be the total package. So
yeah.
That's one of mine. What about you? What's another one that you think is particularly stylish and interesting and maybe not the expected horror movie that people would think about?
Okay. I'm a little insecure about
this. Are you
this
embarrassed?
But I am. But I'm just doing it. It's actually
we're not
two
there's no reason to be embarrassed. There's no reason to be embarrassed here.
But I think that these two movies, they did something different horror-wise than I'd seen before. I think they have a very particular style, and I've never been able to like kick them, especially a couple of the actual vignettes in them. And that is Creepshow and Creepshow 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Anthologies. Yeah.
And like,
totally.
Didn't those two movies like have like, I mean, I know we're even talking about like how Suspiria was like had a richness to it. Like there are a few of those Creepshow shorts that like, especially the Stephen King one with all the like moss and stuff. Like it has like, it is rich. It is right.
It got in your head.
It is like, yes, it got in my head. I've never been able to forget.
Well, let's talk about those anthology movies, right?
Yeah.
Because you had Creepshow 1, Creepshow 2. Then you had Tales from the Dark Side. Remember Tales from the Dark Side?
Yeah.
Because the one that sticks with me out of all of those, the Stephen King one where he's growing the moss, even though he's like very like exaggerated and goofy.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember what the ones from Creepshow 2 were. But the Tales from the Dark Side one that really stuck with me was the one. There were two. There was the mummy, right?
Yes.
And then there was the gargoyle child. And then the in-between story of Tales from the Dark Side is Mariel Hemingway, I think, who has this kid that she is about to cook. And he wants to tell her stories, to kind of distract her. And I remember that in-between story. And I think Creepshow was just sort of like cartoons, it was a comic book. And this kid goes and gets this comic book, And I think
another very stylistic thing that was cool.
Oh,
cool way
super
in,
cool. Super cool. Yeah, and you know, it was one of those things that like, and then the Twilight Zone movie, right?
Yep.
Right? The Twilight Zone movie, it's like you had a lot of like, I think just anthologies in general, you were able to get a kind of a lot of cool different looks and feels
Yeah.
during that time. But I took it a little bit further, but bring it back around to Creepshow and Creepshow 2 and which of those really hit with you?
Okay, so I definitely remember. Okay, so also it was like interesting casting in those movies too, because Leslie Nielsen is
Leslie
in
Nielsen.
one of the
Right.
shorts, and
As a bad guy.
I'd only ever seen him in Naked Gun.
And Ted Danson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he kills
Another
Ted Danson in that.
nice dude. So it was just very shocking to see these guys in something scary. There's also the one with all the teenagers. I actually think this was the first time I ever saw boobs in my life. There was the one with the teenagers where they're out on that like dock and there's like that blob in the water. Yeah.
Right, and they can't get off the dock. That's 2.
Yes. Okay,
That's the
that's
second
2.
one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And that was like a very cool vibe. I mean, very like camp summer. It just had like good saturated colors and out on a dock. We were always down at the lake. Like it was just like felt very that like that one could actually happen. Um and
Oh,
then
I'm sure there's been some fucking crocodile or something that has like
yes.
terrorized some people that were stranded somewhere.
And then there was the one with the it was the like giant Indian chief. It was like a Native American, the wooden statue. And I can't remember what exactly the story was
Mhm.
on that one.
I
Think
know
he
it's tough
maybe
when it's like
came
because
alive.
it's a I'm sure it did. But it
Yeah.
was like, it's a smaller movie too, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
there's not as much plot. So it can be kind of hard to remember exactly what they are sometimes. But it's really the package, right? And it's like you being able to get those like fun little bits and pieces
Yeah.
and be exposed to so much horror different types of horror stories too,
Yeah, a bunch of different
that's its
vibes
own
because
style.
yeah, when you're a kid, it's like you want something to be your favorite. You want like so the fact that it was like I can see this movie and not just the movie as my favorite. I could have my favorite out of these 5, and then I could debate my brother. Like, no, the like moss one, the dude who's growing all the moss all over himself, that was the best one.
Yeah.
Um, those were big ones for me. And I feel like those were always on channel 62. I loved watching
Oh,
those.
yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And then Tales from the Crypt and like, I mean,
Exactly.
there was definitely and I feel like that there was some anthology movies before that, because there was always Friday Fright Night, like
Yeah.
on channel not 62, I think it was like KCTV5 or channel
Okay.
4, WDF. It was on one of the major channels. I just remember it. We didn't have to, and then it was like Ray Adams from Adams Toyota.
Now you can get up to $3,000 in cash for the purchase of a new Isuzu or Toyota car or truck.
And he like had that was on 62 and those were those like, midnight movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the anthology and they brought him back. I mean, that's the cool thing about it is like the ABCs of Death, VHS, which I feel is a really, really fun way to experience a bunch of different styles of storytelling. The ABCs of Death was just A through Z, and they're very short films. And sometimes they can suck, like,
Yeah.
like I was like, wow, that person didn't really try. But VHS and VHS 2, I think hold up. They've got a really fun little, glue story, and then they've got some really good in between the kind of the when somebody pops into VHS. So anthologies, VHS, media. I've got another one to close it out. And I've got a horror filmmaker that I feel like is, to me, really owns a certain aspect of horror. Um, And I don't know how to like. I want to give you some hints.
Okay.
Let me see. James Woods, Jeremy
Okay.
Irons,
Uh-huh.
oh fuck, what's her name? Jennifer Jason Leigh, Robert Pattinson.
Wait, Robert Pattinson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not all in the same movie. Not all in the same movie. These are movies that he has done throughout his career.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think of some other movies that Christopher Walken.
I mean, I'm
This is a toughie. It's a little bit of a tough one because this guy isn't like super mainstream.
yeah. I don't know why the Robert Pattinson is throwing me off so much.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
It is throwing you off. And it's because it probably should throw you off because, again, it's not totally a horror film. I'm talking about, these are all people that have worked with a Canadian film director by the name of David Cronenberg.
Okay. Yep.
James Wood, Videodrome.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Pattinson, Cosmopolis. Jennifer Jason Leigh, Existence. Jeremy Irons, Dead Ringers.
Okay.
Christopher Walken, The Dead Zone.
Right.
Cronenberg is truly one of those guys who I feel is really an artist. And he has artist first, filmmaker second. I kind of feel like that. And body horror is what he really brought, I think, to the horror world. Where stuff just pulsates, you have bladders underneath skin and it just sort of like goes.
Yeah.
He was really instrumental in sort of like bringing this idea of like sort of like your body betraying yourself. And one of the movies that I constantly revisit is Videodrome. James Wood, Debbie Harry. And I don't think it's really anybody else you can, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I can't really think of like anybody else that is recognizable in it. But it really is about the advent of media and the addiction to media and how media kind of seeps into you and how media how there always has to be something more so that people can get their fix of media. And it gets more sexual and more violent and da 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 da. And this was like in the mid 80s when this movie was made. But you watch it and it's just as prescient now as it is then. And it also, the thing about Videodrome is like once you start to watch this Videodrome feed of this extreme violence being perpetrated to these people, which is all that it is. Videodrome is just a channel where people are just getting like, murdered and like, beat and just it's grotesque. But the narrator starts to become unreliable. So it's actually I believe, one of the first horror films where you have the point of view of what's going on in the film is coming from the main character, and you can't necessarily rely that stuff is actually happening. And so that has a good tie to American Psycho, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so stylistically, it's just a really, really interesting way to follow a character through this world and how his point of view in his mind is you're seeing how is being affected by media and by, really, really extreme media at that.
Right.
And it's just one of those films that like, it has some of the, like where he finds this gun that is made out of bones and it kind of like digs itself in through his hand and down into his arm with these kind of spikes, these H.R. Geiger type spikes.
Wow.
Right. It's really, if you haven't watched it, I recommend kind of anything that Cronenberg has done. Shivers, The Brood, they're all fucking crazy and amazing. Scanners, the guy's head exploding, right? Michael Ironsides is in that. He's the guy who actually makes the guy's head explode. He's like, he's like, does it with his mind.
Uh-huh.
I just feel like there's always something worthwhile watching in pretty much every single Cronenberg movie. And one of the ones that I really love, which again, it's one of those things that's like, how extreme do people get when they're just desensitized to just life in the world, is another movie called Crash.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Which is about it's a adaptation of a J.G. Ballard book, and it's about people who love seeing, they get their rocks off by seeing people recreate famous crashes where people died, and literally the cars crash into each other, and that's their thing. And that was a movie that I saw. It was very controversial at the time, NC-17, and I saw that at the Tivoli, the old Tivoli.
Wow.
Yeah, the old school Tivoli, which was the really small theater with I think less than 100 seats.
Yeah.
OG Tivoli before it moved over before Manor Square opened, and then that one closed, and then Manor Square was the only one for a number of years. So, and that was basically, for people listening, the Tivoli was like the OG um, independent movie theater in the Bijou, the cinema in our town in Kansas City. So
it was the best. I worked there for a little bit. Not the
You
OG
did?
one, but the Tivoli Manor Square one.
It was still very cool. Tivoli
Yeah.
Manor Square one is still very cool.
Yeah.
So Cronenberg.
I got to get in on some more Cronenberg.
You got to get, you definitely have to get into some Cronenberg. Start with Videodrome. Videodrome.
I will.
You'll watch and you'll just be like, Jesus. If you don't have any more, do you have another one?
No.
Okay. I want to just give a very quick shout out. I don't want to get too far into it. To a movie that I don't know that necessarily people would think is a horror movie. But I find it to be highly watchable, and another commentary on sort of like our reality right now, and that's Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
He plays Lou Bloom, and Lou is a nobody, but he's also a psychopath. Sociopath, psychopath, really. He's a psychopath because he's violent. And he's just a thief, basically, and he'll do anything to make money. And one day he figures out that he can get a shitty camera and drive around to crime scenes like crashes and film it and sell it to the news. And it's set in LA. And the people who do that, they're called stringers, right? But people really call them night crawlers because they drive around and they basically document people's misery, right? And then they sell it. If it bleeds, it leads. That movie is terrifying because it happens. That is a real thing. And you can see how sort of media just, has gotten sort of like more invested in this kind of violent, if it bleeds, it leads, car crashes, car chases, this type of like, honestly, kind of nonsense news that doesn't make anybody's life better, that doesn't really give you the sort of like intellectual food that you need to navigate the world. So Nightcrawler, and he lost like a ton of weight. It's just one of those performances that not a lot of people have seen Jake Gyllenhaal in, but I would liken it to American Psycho as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You can see that.
It's really, really, really
great
good.
Movie. Great movie.
Really, really good.
Great topic tonight. I loved this beautiful horror masterpiece we've made here.
Beautiful horror.
It was truly gorgeous. It was a stunning night.
Lighting. It's a stunning night with this amazing lighting. I'm just rolling through the colors.
So many colors.
Look at that.
All the colors of Skittles. Crazy. Or the Swedish fish tonight. We had Swedish fish. We didn't just have
Swedish
red.
Fish night.
We had orange and green as well. And to
light
close
is almost
it out.
Melting.
Oh.
It's like I'm touching this thing. I'm like, I need to turn this off soon. This is probably going to catch fire.
It was working overtime.
Yeah. So what Heidi, what are you into this week? What is that so Raven for you? This is our segment where we ask each other what you love, what's going on.
So this is something I've already been loving for a while now. It's a podcast. It's also a show on YouTube. It's more of a show on YouTube, and it has ties to. I'm going to talk about a specific episode of this, but I want to say it has ties to Kansas City. It's called Defunct Land.
Defunct Land. Yes.
Defunct Land.
Yes.
Which is this documentary show.
So good.
On YouTube. It's so good. It's about amusement parks. It's about everything Disney. It's about just all sorts of nostalgia.
It's the best thing on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's the best thing on YouTube.
It just does deep dives into very specific things that you love that you didn't know had this like extra layer. Like for instance, if you're like super into Disney World, you know, you might not have known that they had like some like dance club in 1986 called Dance or something, and it just goes into like it's like 45 minutes on this like particular nightclub in Disney. Well, the one that I'm obsessed right now was they did like a Defunct Land documentary. It's an hour and a half long.
I have the t-shirt.
You do? You have a Halix t-shirt?
I have a Halix t-shirt.
Oh my God. So yeah, it's when Disney World, Disneyland tried to make a sci-fi rock band,
a Star Wars band.
Yes,
a Star Wars band
that performed in the park with a female lead singer, a Wookiee guitarist, a stormtrooper keyboardist,
amazing,
just a regular bassist, and then a drummer who like had to put some shit on. But the Wookiee guitarist, the character design is incredible. He wailed. And then also the stormtrooper keyboardist looks fucking awesome. Like
they were all amazing musicians, and they actually like made pretty decent music.
Yes. And there were people, I just wish, there's so many times, and they're mostly in the 70s and 80s, when I wish I could like Bill and Ted it and go back in time in history. But what I wish is that at that time, I was just at Disney, unknowing that there was this band there. I had just gotten off Space Mountain in Tomorrowland, and I just walk over and watch the performance of my life. Like watch basically Star Wars perform rock music for me. And there were people that happened to. They say in the documentary, they're like, yeah, I just stumbled upon like this incredible sci-fi rock band. And I watched, I just couldn't help but like be mesmerized and watch the entire show. Oh man, I loved it so much. Defunct Land Halix. Check it out.
Yeah, Defunct Land in general is just they have seasons, and Kevin Perjurer is the narrator and the creator of Defunct Land, and he is from Kansas City. Nobody knows who he is.
Thank you, Kevin.
I know somebody who knows who he is.
Love that.
And we would love to, by the way, Kevin, we would love to have you on the show. Because you would have a lot of where we were wins, and you could mask your identity. You come on, mask your identity. We would love to have you. We don't need to see who you are. We don't need to even know who you are. I'm not going to ask my friend who knows you who you are. I'm gonna keep that a secret. I love secrets. So yeah, come on the show.
We would love that. Justin, what's your That's So Raven this week?
This is a silly one because it's just something that is so normal. But hey, it's fall. And it's my favorite season.
Oh.
You know, the temperature breaks. I like the summer. I really like the winter. I like the winter because it's really still, you know? and it just has that stillness, and especially when it's snowing, and just that that it's just feels like it's sort of blanketed and sort of like a some just a nice stillness, a nice kind of soft boxy type of feel. Everything kind of has a glow. But fall is right there next to it because that's where you just have all these amazing colors. That's where you hear the leaves blowing. It starts to, what's great about Kansas City and like where we grew up. And now in New York, you didn't have this in LA. You didn't have the seasons in LA.
Mm-mm.
We have seasons. We have every season. And they are like legit. This is how it's 3 months. And then this one's 3 months. And then this one's 3 months. And then this one's 3 months. It's great. You get to experience like all of these different, the leaves falling off the trees, and then it's snowing and everything dying. And then the spring, everything comes back, and then it gets really hot, and then you get to go through the cycles of that, So I just love that it is, it's fall again and the leaves are dropping, and you hear the crunch.
That. It's crisp.
And yes. And that's what it is right now. Right now, the temperature's just starting to dip because it was like in the 80s, low 80s, high 70s, which is still a little bit too warm at night,
Totally.
And now it's in like the 50s. And, just those walks, when it's like 62 degrees outside and the sun's still hitting you. And so you've got this nice cool breeze and the sun hits you. That's pretty fucking Raven.
That is.
To me,
that's so Raven. I love that.
That is so Raven. So yeah, so it's the fall. But you know what is falling right now? In my mind, it's the credibility, of this great nation. And
okay, if this is about, see, this makes me mad because I know what this is. This is a Justin's Corner, which
it is.
Yeah, which you didn't even announce at this time. You just tried to slip it in because I'm sure
I knew that you would. I knew that you would understand what it is and give voice to it, which you just did. You just introed Justin's Corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you. You haven't even heard Justin's Corner, right? Just like you haven't heard any of my pitches. And yeah, well, I mean, like there's either the creative side or there's the serious side. And this is what you're getting. You're getting the serious side. I don't know
why there can't just be the I'm on a podcast about movies with my sister side. Like,
well, that is 95% of it. And then this 5% is something that is important to me that I think, will listen, it's going to spur discussion. We want to get subscribers, right? And this is a perfect way to do it. Create a little controversy, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 3 things to choose from, 3 topics. Okay.
God.
All right.
Okay.
And I'm going to name something off and you can say yes or no, but you got to say yes to one of them. One of them. I'm giving you a choice of 3.
Can't be the other 3 topics that I've heard brought up on Justin's Corner so far, which were critical race theory, Bill Cosby, and Louis C.K. And by the way, the last 2, I think you were almost going to go to In Defense Of. That's all I want to say about it. Just don't make it those 3 options.
Who knows?
Okay.
It's not those 3 options. Those 3 options.
Amazing.
So, number 1, Black Lives Matter. Is yes or no?
I thought I got 3 options of what we're going to talk about.
Well, yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
Tearing down Confederate statues. And the Constitution.
Okay. Well,
which one do you pick?
I certainly actually have strong feelings about the first 2 that I don't feel like need to be on a podcast about nostalgia in movies. So I'm going to say the Constitution and hope that you're going to talk about the movie 1776 or something. So the Constitution wins and I can. Yeah.
Okay.
The Constitution.
The Constitution.
Wins.
Well, I'm not going to talk about National Treasure, which is a great movie.
Wish you would.
About stealing the Constitution. Not going to do that. I'm going to talk about our broken Constitution. And here's what I think the problem is. I think the problem is it's like with many things today, we're just using the wrong words. You look at the word constitution and right there at the front, it's con.
We're already over, Justin.
We've been conned. Right. We've been conned by the framers of this document. When you create like a positive and negative type of list, the con is the bad thing. Cons are people that trick you, right?
Why don't you just tweet something that says Constitution should be Constitution? Just tweet that, and let's not. I'm gonna
tweet it. But here is what I propose. I think that we need not con. What do you have if it's a con? Like you have your list.
Oh, you
right?
want
you've got the
Constitution.
I want a prostitution. I think a prostitution is a much better. We need to reinvent.
That's prostitution. That's the word prostitution. Prostitution would be prostitution. It doesn't work. So we're done. Justin's Corner's done. You just nothing against prostitution actually, but you just did a whole segment on prostitution. So this is our Halloween episode.
I mean, it wasn't the whole segment, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're right. You're right. That is that word. So,
all right.
I'll think about that. I'll think about those things a little bit more for the next Justin's Corner, which is coming up next week.
Probably not happen. Maybe next fall. I think we're heading out of fall right around this episode.
Look for the sub podcast coming to you in really soon. Little 15-minute episodes dropping. Maybe if we can work something out.
If you like Justin more, listen to Justin's sub pod, Justin's Corner. Well,
Justin's Corner.
Thank you so much. I don't know why you just had to just say Justin's Corner. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Where We Were When. We appreciate you. We hope you're having a wonderful. What the fuck are you doing? Why are you that's not the candy. What? Butterfinger Bites is not the candy. Let's not get it in the last frame because I know that you're DMing with Butterfinger Bites. And this is the only time, and this is this is the only time where I feel like you're using my name, which I would never even say this. I hate that I even have to say this, and I'm saying it on camera. I feel like you're using my name for this to get some sort of deal or ad revenue from Butterfinger Bites, or this is your dance with celebrity. Now suddenly you're like the Butterfinger Reaper. I don't know what you're doing with Butterfinger. I hope I never find out. I don't want anything to do with Butterfinger. I'm just enjoying
the crispity, crunchity, peanut buttery.
Do you know what you told me before we started this podcast? Because you can't stop talking about Butterfinger. You told me you'd have been having stomach problems and that you hadn't had candy in months. And that Butterfinger, you had Butterfinger and you had such bad gas and stomach bubbles that you think the Butterfinger Bites cleared your ass out basically. And you've been feeling the best you've been feeling a month.
Thank you. I'm glad you told that story. Thank you, Butterfinger, because the Butterfinger Bites, it expanded and then it hurt like a motherfucker. I don't know what's in these things. But then
Butterfinger, if you're
was like a tidal wave, and I feel great. I've had stomach problems for the past 3 months, and I mean they're gone like that. And I think whatever is in these things.
Okay, so basically, Butterfinger, your little dancing with the devil, the NASA Reaper over here. This is what happens when you dance with the devil, is that you get an ad where someone says, I ate your candy and it blew my ass out so much that it basically passed an ulcer or something.
Hey,
because
if it works, why would you not put that on the box? Cures ulcers.
Just reach out to me directly. If we're doing Butterfinger, anything at this point, I'm taking over. So Butterfinger, if you're watching, or Butterfinger Bites might be separate than Butterfinger, reach out to me. I'll do a real ad on the show so all this bullshit can stop. Thank you so much.
Butterfinger, I told you. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh my God. It's that deep. It's that deep that you have like that.
You don't know how deep it goes.
Where you could go, oh, that is so disgusting.
You don't know how deep it goes.
Okay, that is so, this is like so Patrick Bateman. Okay. Thank you so much, American Psycho, Justin Gardner. Thank you so much for tuning in to Where We Were When. We love you. We hope you're having a wonderful fall and a very spooky October. And we will, I mean, you're posing. You've changed.
This looks really weird after I've had that hood on. Just like red.
It looks orange. You look like you dyed your hair orange. You look like you dyed your hair Butterfinger.
I kind of look like it's a little bit like that. What do I want to say? The Kiefer Sutherland. I just need a little flip.
Yes, we should be Lost Boys for Halloween. That'd be cool, actually.
That'd be good.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Where We Were When. Justin, don't. We love our guest tonight.
John is my man. John helped me kind of survive my first standby line. So, John, welcome to the cast. Welcome to Where We Were When. You're here anyway because you are a producer.
I can honestly say that I've seen every episode of this podcast you guys have been putting on.